Joining us today. My name is Gina Dingman, and I'm part of Quote Wizard's agent education team. Quote Wizard supplies high intent leads and calls to captive and independent agents. Few housekeeping. I will be sending this recording and all this good stuff by the end of this week. So don't worry. If you cut out for a second, I will get all of this to you. We are so excited to have Allison Donor of Craig Wiggins Consulting with us today. She's going to be teaching us how to make leads work for you. A few fun facts about Allison. She is the president of Craig Wiggins Coaching with over 2 decades of experience in the insurance industry. She spent more than 15 years as a successful multi-location mega captive agency owner. Her success is rooted in her deep understanding of client needs and buying behaviors, along with her ability to build effective lead management and sales processes. We are so excited to have her with us today. I know she has a bunch of info, so whenever you're ready.
Great. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. So, like she said, everyone, my name is Allison. You can call me Allison, you can call me Allie, you can just say, hey, and I'm always happy to answer. I'm not formal like that. Maria was supposed to join me. She is my coworker and partner in crime. She actually worked with me at my agencies before I sold them. But unfortunately, we had a team member suffer an injury, and we have a live class this week for I believe, sales foundations for our members of CWC. So she had to teach that. So it's just me today, but I promise I have lots and lots of good stuff. So hopefully you can find at least one actionable item to take away to improve your sales or efficiency, because that's really what we strive to do, is to either help people save money, or make time to do everything they need to get done in a day, because there's a lot that comes at you in an agency. So let's get started. So first thing I want to focus on is best practices to quote more people. So there's 3 P's that really matter when it comes to this level of success. It's promptness, personalization, and persistence. So I'm going to give you some information around all 3. So first of all, on promptness and timing. Conversions jump by 8 times if a lead is attempted in the first 5 minutes. So I think that that is critically important for everyone to hear. Now, I'm going to give you a lot of stats in this slide, and some of you are going to go, no. You really need to understand that I used to do the same thing when I was an agency owner about stats. But now that I work with people all over the country, I mean, thousands of different agencies, I realize, yes, this actually could be a correct stat, that there are some amazing agencies, but there are also some very low performing agencies. And so I just want you to keep an open mind, because this will matter in your confidence and your approach when you hear what some of your competition is actually doing with some of these things. So according to some stats, only 19% of insurance web leads are called back within 1 hour. So I'm not even talking about the 5 minutes. I'm talking about a whole hour. Only 19% of those are called within an hour. That is a problem, because contacting a lead within 1 minute, some studies suggest, lead to a 391% better odd on that lead, whether that's quoting capability, conversation. It just improves your better odds of working that lead. So we want to make sure that time is definitely on our side. So I know some people will buy things that their agency actually isn't open and be like, I'll do it, tomorrow. And maybe that would make sense if it's overnight. But the problem is, if you're doing that during times where other agents are open, it might be cheaper, but you might be diminishing the value of your ROI and actually working a little bit harder and not smarter. So I think the focus should be promptness and timing. Like, when is my team or myself available to get to these people in record speed? You also want to make sure with persistence, it's persistence without pressure. You got to balance, consistent follow up without becoming spammy or stalkerish in some cases, right? So I'm going to give you guys an example of a possible lead follow up flow. And then we're going to dive into some more statistics so that you guys can really consider, all this information and personalize a follow-up that works for you and your leads, because we can give you framework as advisors and coaches in the insurance industry, but you have to remember that communities vary and generations vary on how they want to be approached, how frequently they want to be approached, and even the lead source. An internet lead or a live transfer obviously has a massive sense of urgency, and there could even be some competitive nature there because leads are sold to multiple people. Direct mail could be totally different, or a referral lead, right? So take this as just like an example, because there are some key things. I mean, you could take this and run with it, right? But more important is the stuff that is within this document that talks about, the granular details, like on the first one, within 5 minutes, immediate response, creating an urgency to go over the quote, like, leaving a voicemail, like, I have your quote ready to go. I don't need any further information from you. Even maybe just, I just need 5 minutes. I used to do that all the time in my voicemails, in even opening lines. I just need 2 minutes. I just need 5 minutes. Because you have to understand that a lot of people avoid having these sales conversations with anybody, cell phone carriers, whatever, because of time constraint concerns, because we're busy. A lot of us are very busy and we don't have a minute to spare. But if we can get that person to hear us say that it's not a lot of time and we can help them, that's huge. So the urgency there isn't just your time. The urgency there is if you see something, to say, I just need 2 minutes of your time. I need to point out concerns over your coverages, or I just need 2 minutes of your time. I think I can save you a significant amount of money. Whatever is going to hook that customer, whatever you see, without diving too deep into the weeds, you need to grasp their attention, because more than ever, we don't have very long attention spans. Blame it on technology, blame it on how busy we are. I have no idea the real answer behind that, but I did hear a stat that we now as human beings have a smaller attention span than a goldfish. Don't know if that's true, but I heard it. So I'm just sharing that with you. So we have to be very quick to get that hook and get that client to listen to us and create an urgency and a reason for them to stay on the phone with us. Like, I can help you. Whatever that help looks like, money, coverages, doesn't matter. But people want to spend time with people that does something for them at the end. It's not about you and your goals, right? It's what's in it for them. So we got to get that messaging out right away. And then right after, if we leave a voicemail, send a text, send a follow-up email, so on and so forth. So some other things in here is that, emails and texts may say similar messaging, but you're obviously much more professional in an email format and maybe a little more detailed. But text messages need to be short and sweet. Sometimes I'll see prospecting text messages that are like novels, and I'm like, that is not what text is for. Email is for that. So if you want to get that information over to the person, put it in the email. The text should be very short and sweet, even bullet points if you feel like there's something that you need to say, but just keep that very tight. You want to, when you ever leave voicemails or phone calls in the future, when they answer, you want to reiterate your value or your concern as quickly as possible to remind them why they want to talk to you. So sometimes the follow-up text might be as simple as your quote is ready to review. Now, in our sales process, we really try not to send quotes. That is definitely a thing. But at some point, if you cannot get this person to connect with you to go over the phone, you do need to send the text or with the quote or the email. When you're going to do that, I'm not sure, but you have to remember that people get overwhelmed sometimes with leads, because they're like, oh, I just thought they would email me the quote and I wouldn't have to actually talk to somebody, and their phone's blowing up, right? So we just really want to make sure that we're not so stuck in our I need to talk to you sales mindset that we're eliminating clients that don't actually want to talk to someone. I would be one of those people. I'm just being fully honest. I talk to people all day. Sometimes I'm on Zoom 5 to 6 hours a day. I don't want to talk. I just want to see what you have to offer. And then if I like it, then we can talk, right? So if somebody would not be willing to send me that quote eventually, I'm someone that you completely miss out on. So we have to really learn how to read a room, be chameleons and adapt things to meet the client where they want to meet. And I also think it's critically important that we say that in our communication, whether it's voicemail, text, email, that we say, you could reach me by phone, email, text, right? whatever works for you. We can meet on Zoom, like, all the options because people communicate differently. And so we want to make sure that we meet the client or prospect where they are at. Okay. 87% of consumers screen calls from numbers they don't recognize. 67% of people don't listen to voicemails that come from a business. And only 18% of people listen to voicemails from phone numbers they don't recognize. So I know sometimes you may look at things and be like, that is a lot of effort and a lot of redundancy to text, to call, to leave emails, to send mail, whatever it is you're doing, but you have to understand it's because it's getting harder and harder to get hold of people. Like, I guess everybody's kind of turning into me. They don't want to talk. They got things to do. They're trying to be with their kids, their partners, whatever it may be in the evening. They don't want to deal with business stuff in the evening. The other thing that people may not be paying attention to that is a big problem is spam. So the spam is actually controlled by the carrier. So you may be calling a Verizon phone number and you're not showing up as spam, but if you call a T-Mobile, you are showing up as spam. So it is critical that you have a process in your office to check every phone number with every wireless carrier and make sure that you are not on spam, and then follow their spam remediation process, which should be able to be found online. It's usually just a form where you validate that your phone number is legit, comes from a legit business, or you can partner with a spam remediation company to handle that for you if you have a ton of phone numbers and it's just an overwhelming process. But that is why a lot of calls aren't getting answered because, if you call somebody and you don't leave a voicemail, a lot of consumers or prospects, when you call the second or third time and again don't identify yourself, they're immediately reporting you. And so it only takes so many reports and then you get marked as spam. So this is a continual process that you will have to pay attention to. So if you are having low answer rates, you could be showing up as spam at a carrier or two or more. So I want to make sure that I gave everybody that warning. Okay. 72% of consumers say they prefer email as their primary means of communication with business. And I absolutely agree with that stat. But here is the problem. What email are they giving you? Because I give everyone my Gmail, and this is a legit stat from last night. I have 23,567 emails in my inbox, in my Gmail. And believe it or not, I just actually emptied some. But yet my business email only has 3 in my inbox. So you can clearly tell where my priorities are and where I'm focused. But when I am dealing with stuff, I'm not giving them my work email. I'm giving them my Gmail. So if they're emailing me follow-ups and they could be the most beautifully written follow-ups you've ever seen, I'm probably not seeing them. Text message, much better shot. Still a chance that it won't be seen. I have over 300 unread text. And then mail, possibly, but it would have to not look like marketing, because if it's marketing, it's going right in the trash. So let's talk about mail, because I feel like a lot of people don't think about mailing things out. And I think that that is a critically important process, especially in certain generations. Older ones, we still will open mail out of curiosity. So one thing I would say is if you're going to do a follow-up by mail, should not look like marketing, right? Should not have all that that marketing printing does. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about with the window, with the font. You can just tell, oh, this is a marketing piece. Handwritten, preferably a blank envelope or just the return address, not, such and such insurance agency at this address, just the address. And then for a little extra oomph, as well as staying in front of your prospects, you can include a business magnet card. It will create weight in the mailer, which we're like, ooh, why is this so heavy? So they sending me a gift card? Unfortunately, no. But here's the thing about magnets. People keep them for their fridge, right? Business cards, people pitch. But magnets people keep because they want to put, art, grocery list, whatever, pictures on their fridge. And so you could literally be on someone's fridge and they could see your business card every single day when they open their fridge. That is really being in front of somebody, right? So you can get these magnet backed business cards. They just have like glue on them, and you just put your regular business cards on them. I get mine at Amazon. So, and then if you are a Craig Wiggins coaching client, CWC client, we do have our wording for our suggested outbound notes that you send. We also have scripts available online for your voicemails and stuff that you're leaving. So if you're like, I don't really know what to say, like we've got it all done for you. So wanted to point out to not lose sight of mail because people really that don't keep up well with email or text or even phone calls might actually open up a piece of mail. And so, don't give up on those other opportunities. Okay. Setting yourself apart from the competition. I think it is critically important to establish how different you are. But here are some stats to show you how you can be different, generally just through follow up on your leads. So some studies say that 44% of agencies give up after one attempt. A second call alone increased the chances of contacting that lead by 87%. And that's a stat from 15 million leads being monitored. That a second call alone increased the chance of contact by 87%. Now, I'm not saying they said yes to a quote, but at least they were talking to a live human being, right? 60 to 80% of insurance agents or salespeople give up within 3 or fewer follow-up attempts, and 92% of salespeople give up after 4 attempts. And then some companies, like larger companies that were managing some of their lead data, they actually said in a survey that their reps typically give up in 4 to 5 attempts before abandoning a lead. So those would be like your major carriers that have internal call centers that are working leads. So look at that. Every stat on here, after 5, they've kind of given up. Probably most people after 1 or 2, right? So if you stay in the game and if you think about consumer behavior, if my phone is blowing up with a bunch of phone numbers that I don't know on a Tuesday, I'm not answering those, right? I'm definitely not answering anyone with an unknown number. But by Friday, if it's just you calling me, I might be like, huh, that person called me. Let me see what this is, right? Because everyone else will have given up. And you're like the lone person trying to work that lead. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys because I think a lot of times people assume if no one calls you back in the first day or two, they probably go on with somebody else. That is just simply not true. They could just be exhausted. They could just be busy. They could just have gotten distracted, right? Like, don't give up. Do not give up until you actually speak to this person because you can be the last person running the race because everyone else has given up. So I think that is really important for people to understand. After the second attempt, 72% of contactable leads were reached. So I'm not talking about people with bad phone numbers, stuff like that. 83% with the third call, 88 with the fourth, 91 with the fifth, and 93 with the sixth call. And so again, probably what's happening is in the beginning, first call, they're getting a bunch of calls, right? Then producers and agencies stop following that lead. Then you have a much better chance of speaking to them because everyone else has given up. So these are different stat sources, different surveys, and they all kind of come to the same conclusion. So I think that is critically important for us to remember when we're feeling frustrated with our contact rates with leads. Don't ever give up. Building trust and credibility. So 85% of buyers say they're more likely to buy from someone they trust. So I am going to discuss later on this how to build trust through the quoting process. However, I do want to step sidebar on something is that recommendations build instant trust, right? So recommendations can obviously be a referral, but it also could be that if you notice that you know somebody on that street or in that neighborhood, or the person is a teacher and your kids went to school there, right? Like if you're like, oh, like connection, right? Then they can kind of fact check you and be like, how do you like doing business with their agency? Things like that, right? What's this person like? There are lots of ways to build trust besides just in the rapport building quoting process. But I would say that my number one trust thing is that you take these leads and when you close them, they are the happiest they're probably ever going to be with you and your agency is the moment you close them because you've either solved a problem or saved them money. It's just the way it goes, right? That's the happiest they're ever going to be. if we're not asking for referrals and recommendations, then when are we asking for, right? And you don't have to be aggressive about it. You don't have to be like, hey, I need you to give me your top 5 people in your friends list. Like, no, you could even just ask them if they're like, this was great. I had no idea. Thank you so much. Be like, that's awesome. I'm glad I was of value to you. Hey, I just have a quick favor. If you use any kind of social media, whether that is LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. If I send you my business card, I could just text it to you. Would you mind sharing with your network what a great experience you had? That is instant trust, you guys. That is instant trust. And now this ROI on this one lead is huge because they now are taking your information and sharing it to their network, right? But we got to get in with these people and then we can start using that lead to even branch out even further. Okay. 74% of buyers choose the company that was first to add value and educate them during their decision making process. So, one of our most advertised philosophies that we talk about in the quoting process at CWC for training is educating customers, not saying, oh, I see you have 100, 300, 100. Let me just duplicate that. We ask, I see you have 100,000 per person, 300,000 per accident. Do you know what that means? I mean, I hear people all the time go, okay, 25, 50, 50. Do you think any normal consumer truly understands what that means if it's never been explained to them? Probably not. Probably not. So we want to make sure that we are educating them along the way, even on the most basic of things, which include bodily injury and liability limits, right? Do you even understand what you are paying for? Because I found that most consumers think that the deductible is the most important part of a policy. And I'm like, no, no, absolutely not. If you are used to having a $500 deductible and we're trying to give you 1,000 to free up some premium so we can increase your liability limits, listen, if you need to pay out an extra $500, hopefully you'll be able to, figure it out, put it on a credit card, borrow it from a friend, whatever it takes to get that extra $500. But what you can't usually do is borrow $50,000, $75,000 when your liability limits are short from what you're legally liable for an accident that you caused, right? So, yes, deductibles want to be comfortable and people want to understand them, but is it the most important or the most vulnerable part of an auto policy or a home policy? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The 100,000 and up coverages are what people struggle with and can financially destroy their lives if they don't have enough coverage. Okay. So here are some of our key areas that we train on when it comes to quoting, building rapport. So hold on one second, guys. I'm going to get real passionate. So I'm going to take it real quick. I know that in its own right makes some people nervous, like building rapport. But again, the things that I've heard and seen in my time, there are a lot of terrible, terrible conversations happening out there. Like I listened to one time where the opening line from the prospect was, I know nothing about insurance. My husband of 56 years just passed away, and I'm so lost and confused, and I just need somebody to help me. And the salesperson's response was, okay, what's your name? Are you married, widowed, single, or divorced? And I about fell out of my chair. No, I'm sorry for your loss. No, like no effective listening skills. She literally just told you she's a widow zero point 0.2 seconds ago. So building rapport isn't about sharing, this bonding moment with a prospect. Like, okay, what's your sign? Okay, where did you grow up? Like, we don't have 2 hours to talk to people, right? But it is about listening. That's like probably the biggest skill set of listening is they say something, and a lot of times I'll say it's what they say in between the lines we want to hear that's important. Like they may answer a question that you ask them, but then right after that, they're like, well, except for my fur babies. I love my fur babies. If you are not jumping on that sentence, you are missing a huge rapport building connection opportunity. Because anybody that says, I love my fur babies, they want to talk about their fur babies. You may not like fur babies, but you're like, tell me more. What are their names? Like, be a human, have a conversation. That is what building rapport is all about. Another key point of our sales process is to really continue to emphasize value over price because price is like an immediate satisfaction thing, right? That, okay, I want to pay as little as possible. The problem is there are people out there that need better coverages, and we're not having that conversation at a lot of agencies. People are just copy paste on deck pages, right? I'm going to give them exactly what the other agent did. Well, first of all the times I hear my company is not competitive, I don't know why we're trying to compete apples to apples if we're not competitive, because that sounds like a really backward process to me, right? So instead of focusing on the price, which most people say we're not competitive, we need to focus on the value of you, the value of your agency, the value of the conversation you're going to have, the education, finding gaps in insurance that are critically important for them. That is where your focus needs to happen. Then another key point is to tell a story. We obviously don't call them stories because people connect stories with fiction, right? It's not true. So we call it stories in our training, but we obviously don't tell that to a client. Instead, we say something like, let me tell you about a customer of mine, or let me tell you about a customer of an agency down the street. If it's not your customer, right? I don't want you lying. But you need to tell them something that will resonate with them. Don't tell them a story about how some teenager was going 20 miles over the speed limit and cause this horrific wreck if they don't have teen drivers or if speeding isn't a concern for them, right? If they say something like, I don't need all that, I'm an excellent driver, tell them a story to buck that security. So for me personally, it would be, listen, I hear you. I'm an excellent driver too. I don't even speed. But here's the thing. I still carry a $5 million umbrella. And part of it is I have teen drivers. I know you don't, but that is a big factor for me because that's the truth. But secondarily to that, I had a client who was a great driver and she drove a friend's car because the friend was consoling their toddler in the back. It was a beautiful day. Can't blame it on weather. Can't, nothing. Unfortunately, she was unfamiliar. She was distracted by the crying toddler and she missed a four-way stop. And she T-boned a woman on the other side, and the payout was over $950,000. In addition to that, which we paid, by the way, because she had the right coverages, but that was all while she was dealing with a vehicular homicide charge. So I'm not trying to be doom and gloom on here, but even the best of drivers end up in nightmare situations. And we want to make sure that you understand that there are things that you can do besides being a good driver to protect yourself in the event something possibly so rare, but still possible, could happen to you. Like whether they take your advice or not, you guys, that's on them, right? They maybe will still do business with you, not at the coverage level you suggest, but it's your duty to talk to people about being underinsured if they are. That is how we're going to be different. Because if we don't, then they might as well just buy their stuff online. Why do we even have licenses? If we're not going to take what we've learned with experience and education and regurgitate that to the everyday consumer and try to help people be in a better insurance position, then let's just let the computers do it, right? So we don't want that, obviously. So that is why we have to do that. So you also want to make them do the math, right? So let's say the price is higher because you're increasing their limits. You don't want them just to freak out over a 6 month increment or a year increment. You want them to break it down like daily. And a lot of times that'll come down to like, 5 cents, 10 cents, $1.69 a day. If you get up into the dollar something a day, $2 something a day, even three something a day, talk about like what's more important, like getting your favorite coffee drink every day or having $500,000 more in coverage to protect your assets. Like we have to take somewhat of like a everyday common sense approach to this increase in the billing rather than letting the client kind of try to figure it out themselves because they'll get overwhelmed and you probably will not close that deal, right? You have to break it down. And I truly believe that daily is the best way to do that. Then you have to show them how you're better. Obviously, you're showing them the whole time with your rapport building, your conversation, your connection, and any gaps that you found, things like that. But you don't just want to point out how you're better with coverages. You also want to point out what you would find in the policy pages. So, for example, if your company has a benefit where if you have the auto and the home insured at the same company, that in the event of a dual loss, like a hail claim, the deductible on the auto is waived. Like that's not going to be on the deck page, right? But that is something you would find in the policy pages. And so I think things like that are critically important. On the flip side, there may be things that you know about a competitor that are a detriment to them that are not going to be on the deck pages, but you would find it in the policy pages. So, for example, if you have a co-payment schedule for a roof or full roof replacement, but you're competing against somebody who does ACV, explaining to the client without like a schedule that shows, hey, your roof is this many years old, this is how we'll participate in the event of a wind hail loss. They're kind of at the mercy of the adjuster, what they feel like the grade, the depreciation level needs to be, right? And there's some insecurity in that for customers. Like, well, no, I want to know what they're going to pay on my roof, right? You gotta bring those things up because your everyday consumer would not know that. They would not be aware that that is something that they have to deal with. Another thing on the deck page coverage that I get a lot is consumers don't understand percentage deductibles. So you really want to make sure you're taking the time, especially if you're quoting a dollar deductible, to be like, look, 1% of a $400,000 home is a $4,000 deductible. My deductible is $1,000. I've had more prospects and clients that have quoted at a competitor tell me, no, no, that's not right. It's 1% of the claim amount. I'm like, okay, ask the agent and then come back and let me know, right? I'm right, they're wrong. But consumers assume that. It's for whatever reason, I don't know if they don't hear the agents. I don't know if the agents aren't explaining it thoroughly, but they think it is 1% or 2% of the actual claim amount, and then it's not. And so they're really not looking at you fairly when they're trying to do a side by side comparison because there's misinformation. So a lot of stuff we have to really clarify, make sure the client truly understands what it is that they're looking at and what they are reading. Okay, I kind of touched base about technology a moment ago and about your human element. So I want to hit on that for a second because AI is coming. AI is here. It's going to keep coming. But I myself am not worried about any of us becoming extinct, in the insurance sector because the human element is irreplaceable. Our expertise, our empathy, our emotions, trust we can build, connections like, oh, I know your neighbor. I grew up in that neighborhood, or, whatever it would be. Oh, I worked for that company. I love that company. They're the people that do all of our HVAC stuff, whatever it may be. No AI can do that. No computer can do that. We can do that, right? So that is one of the biggest things about our sales process and rapport builder is focusing on that and being that. And by doing that in the long run, we're all going to protect our careers and our sector and keep ourselves relevant when technology just keeps getting better and better. Okay, let's talk about lead management tips for higher conversion rates. So one thing that I find is that people really don't know where they're going. They're like, I don't know, I just wake up every day and try to do my best, which, okay, great, super. I actually like the positive attitude. However, if you have actual goals you're trying to meet, whether that's a paycheck you're trying to make or a certain standard that your agency has set or a certain goal, doesn't matter. What is your target? What is that? And then you need to figure out how to get there. What is it going to take to get there? You have to back into it. So I just did a real quick example of somebody that's trying to write 20,000 in premium. They basically would need to know what their close rate is and their average premium per item and then average items per policy, which I'll explain in just a second. So they need to do 20,000 in premium and their average premium per item. So if it's a 3-car auto, that's 3 cars, so $700 an item. They take the 20,000 and divide by the 700. They need to write 29 items in order to reach that $20,000 premium goal. The average item per policy is a weighted average, which can vary from agency to agency. I usually see 1.3 to 1.5 if you just want to do a good guesstimate on yours. But it's basically like if you have a 2-car household with a home, right? Those 2 policies, but it's 3 items. So then you get a 1.5 items per policy in that particular transaction. So that's how we come up with the average items per policy. So if I need to do 29 policies and I average 1.3 items per policy, that is 22 policies needed. And if my close rate is 20%, I take 22 divided by 20%. That tells me I have to do 110 quotes that month. And so, you even have to go a step further, like, if you're really a person that wants to understand how many calls do I have to make, how many contacts do I have to do, how many emails do I have to send, you can get granular on that. But You can also be very simple. Like if I need to do 110 quotes and there are, let's say, 20 business days in a month that you're going to be present at work, then you need to focus on doing 5.5 quotes a day. Some people might be like, whoa. But if you're working with households that don't have anything with you, that is just 3 households a day because you could get 2 policies from each household and that puts you at 6, right? So really breaking it down and understanding the effort that it's going to take, where you're trying to go. Okay, hot leads first. So a lot of leads are going to come at you. Some are good, some are great, some are horrible, right? Just depends. So you always want to do your hot leads first because we only have so much time in the day. So prioritize by focus. I specifically left focus generic because every agency is different. You might be focused on home auto condo. You might be focused on premium. You might be focused on items. You might be focused on policy count. So in your lead managing, whether that's a Google Doc or an actual system, are you putting in there what is the premium? How many items are in this household? How many policies am I quoting in this household? Do you have a lead scoring system of like even something as simple as ABC? C is cold, B is warm, A is hot. Do you have a lead scoring system? 1 to 10, 10 being the best, one being the worst. And so you make sure you get to all your tens first. Like you need something so that you're better at hunting. Like that's really what sales prospecting is, right? It's hunting. And so if my goal is item based, I don't want to sell a bunch of 1 item policies, 1 car autos. I want to sell 4 car autos and 5 car autos. I want to move the needle faster. So when I organize my leads, I'm going to organize them by item count and I'm going to work the highest item counts first. It's just working smarter, not harder. Another thing is, people are like, oh, they didn't buy from me. So I just need fresh leads. Like Quote Wizard, give me more leads. I need more leads. Call Quote Wizard, turn them up. Nope. No, listen. Quote Wizard already gave you great leads to work, and you talked to them 6 months ago, a year ago. You need to go back, not only because of the stats that I showed you about recontacting, but because of recontacting efficiency for requotes, right? That you have everything that you need in your quote system. You just need to refresh reports. So instead of spending 45 minutes report building and 5 minutes trying to close a sale, like a fresh lead, now you're spending 5 minutes trying to refresh the lead and all your other time is working on closing it. You could literally double your production by working your requotes appropriately. And then in the long run, if you're a producer on this, what ends up happening is your ROI gets better because you're not giving up and you're actually closing these deals. Revenue goes up, and then leadership and ownership have more money to spend on marketing to buy more leads from Quote Wizard. It is a win-win situation. The other thing people lose sight of is that win backs, people you've insured before that left that you're trying to get back, and requotes have far more trust than a brand new lead because you're like, look, I don't need anything from you. I don't need anything from you. And you can use this same talk path if the leads you're getting honestly have everything you need just to get a quote done. Maybe not to close it, but just to get a quote done. Because a lot of people will wall up because there's a lot of scammers out there. You guys, people are replicating voices, calling grandmas and being like, your grandson's in jail and Cabo, and we need $10,000. And people are falling for it left and right? So there's elderly warnings. But if you call and speak to someone and go, you don't have to give me anything. I have everything I need. I just need your permission to run your consumer reports, and then I'm gonna go over this quote with you. There's nothing, unless something has changed, unless you've moved in the last 2 years, whatever your quote date is, there is a trust there, right? To go back to the stat about people that buy from people they trust. It's another trust factor. I love automations and workflows for staying present of mind, but I am going to talk a little bit about personalization of those follow-ups and automations and when maybe you need to do a little extra sizzle. But automations and workflows can make us far more efficient. It can also help put things in our calendar for follow-up that maybe we would have forgotten about if the system wasn't telling us, like, hey, you need to look at Bob Smith again. It's time. You have to talk to him in a year. And then my logic about leads is they have to buy or die to get off of our list. Obviously, we recognize the do not call. So if anybody's like, take me off your list, we're very compliant. But other than that, if they don't buy now, they go into a cycle, right? We're always following up on that. So that's really important. Okay. Other things that you can do to organize your leads is competitor intelligence. So if you have a field in your lead management system, or even if you just put them all on a Google Doc, if you kind of know, like, okay, well, American Family is going up, or Farmers is going up, or Allstate's going up, or Progressive's going up. If competitor intelligence is something that you get from the company that you represent or companies you represent, like, okay, well, this company's going up, then you can go back to your quotes that you've done, your leads that you've done, and look for people that were insured with that company, and then call. And then your opening line, your instant hook is like, hey, you got your renewal? I heard that they're going up 28%. I mean, it's a gateway to conversation. They're like, what do you mean? No, I haven't seen it. Where'd you learn that from? Like, oh, it's filed with the state DOI. Not only are you getting them to conversate with you, but you're establishing that you know what the heck is going on in the industry. You are now different, right? That was what the slide said, be different. You're now different, and probably the only agent calling with that information. So competitor intelligence, if you're watching that, you need to have your leads organized with that. Also underwriting concerns. Like, we used to keep a running log of people that couldn't be insured at our agency due to dog breeds. And then all of a sudden one day our company was like, we don't have a dangerous dog breed list anymore. You can write all those people. You just can't have a bite history. I instantly had hundreds of people I could call back to write their homeowners because of the dog situation. So underwriting concerns, whatever that may be, if you feel like this is something that the tides could change, keep track of that. The other thing, and this is where kind of automation won't work, right? This takes the human element, is if there's a claim that'll fall off, or a ticket that'll fall off, or maybe somebody's birth date matters in your rating algorithms, 21, 25, whatever that may be, moving an X date forward for a manual follow-up when that falls off, so that you can try to earn that business because you couldn't earn it when it was baked into the pricing. So granular lead management, prioritization lead management, and working hot leads first, hot leads that are hot to you, not just because they're new, but because they have the highest probability of closing, or the highest impact on your roadmap of where you're trying to go. That is what I want you to focus on. Okay. So I also need you to assume you're quoting the whole insurance portfolio. I hear people, well, they only wanted an auto quote. It's an auto lead. Okay, great. Here's the thing though, and this is a little bit of an outdated stat. I couldn't find one current one. As of 2022, JD Power and Associates said that 64% of U.S. auto insurance customers bundle their policies with home insurance. So, and I believe this stat because I had a lot of homeowners where the auto policy was actually at one particular company. I'm like, I'm so sick of being this company's home insurance carrier. We've got to get these autos. And part of that was because I had some team members that would get calls for a home quote and they could not pivot. They just could not pivot. But if you think about this, the disadvantage, right, that we're not giving them the discounts, right? Some of you have great bundling discounts, 30%, 25%. I've seen 34%, right? So just from a pricing optimization, why are we not even trying? Look, I get it that somebody might be screaming at my screen right now going, but Allie, you don't understand. We can never beat blah, 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 even with our 25% home auto discount. You might be right, but if you're not even trying to do the quote, how do you know that? That might be your perception or assumption, or it may be factually correct from 5 years ago. Insurance is cyclical, rates are cyclical. I can be cleaning the floor with a company one day, and 2 weeks later, they're beating me left and right. Insurance is cyclical. We cannot lock into these myths and do ourselves a disservice by creating our own roadblocks. Also, that is a win if somebody's got split stuff, because according to Deloitte and Touche, bundled customers that do have their things with the same company are 2 to 4 times less likely to switch. So the fact that you have somebody that's like, I just want to talk about my auto, I'm real happy over here with this, you have a better chance of closing them than somebody that has it with everybody. You just need to work your magic, assume you're quoting the whole household, explain the value of, we can take care of everything here. We can watch your limits. We can grow with you. We can get you an umbrella policy because we insure your most important assets. Whatever that conversation is, we need to try to get the whole thing. Every key on that key ring needs to be insured under you and under your watch. Okay. In the very beginning, I talked about promptness, personalization, and persistence. So we went over promptness, we went over persistence. So I'm going to talk about personalization. Things like, your workflows and stuff, they're very, but let's say that you quoted somebody in April and they were like, you know what, I'm just so overwhelmed. I just found out that my son has to have tubes in his ears and I can't do this right now. You're gonna have to give me some time. I'll talk to you in like a month or so. Even if you just sent a follow-up text at the beginning of May that just said, hey, this is Allison, and I was just thinking about your son and his tubes. I hope everything went well. I look forward to talking to you soon. That will go so far, right? They're still maybe getting your automated ones, but just the little things that we notice, even if you're talking to somebody and you're like, you notice their birthday was last week, or they say something about their anniversary last week at our anniversary dinner. We are talking about what we're paying for our auto rates, and they're just out of control. Oh my God, happy, belated anniversary. Like, and then mentioning it again, like, I'm so glad you had this discussion over your anniversary dinner. I know it's not what we want to talk about as a married couple, but that's what adulting is, right? You need to personalize it. You need to be a human being. It's what people connect with. It's the rapport building. So workflows and automation are great for efficiency, but you have got to have some personalization in there. Otherwise, you are going to lose a large part of your prospect pool because people like me need to connect with people they want to do business with. Not only do I need to like you, I need to feel like you get me and you hear me and you see me and you value me. That is very important to me. Far more important than price. I've absolutely paid more for things. I even paid sticker for a car one time because of the value that the salesperson brought to me. Like, if you think that it's all about price all the time, you are shooting yourself in the foot. Okay, time management. Highly recommend a schedule if you feel like you're out of control to get, how you're going to work your leads and everything. For the sake of time, though, I just want to go over a couple of facts on the right hand side. So if you need to make 200 calls a day, I'm just going to do the highest one first, and you spend 1 minute on each of those calls, that will take you 3.33 hours. But if you spend 3 minutes on each of those calls, looking at the lead, digesting the lead, Googling their house, whatever it may be, there's enough time in the day. It's going to take you 10 hours just to make those phone calls, right? So let's use a more lower number, 120 calls a day, right? 3 minutes is going to take you 6 hours of your day. 5 minutes, you're back up to out of time. So we have to be quick with our follow-up. We cannot get stuck in analysis paralysis. And then the stat on the bottom is more of a like just generalization of time management. We call them time vampires. That if you spend 5 minutes an hour, you're wasting 40 hours a day. But at the end of a year, you've actually wasted over 4 weeks. Just 5 minutes an hour of like la la or researching something that you really didn't need to research. It's killing you. It's absolutely killing you. Okay, confident mindset. A lot of us are like, we're not competitive or we've had all these rate increases because you only know what's happening in your world. So I'm here to help you with that. 2024 was all-time high, like rate increases. It was like the year of the insurance rate increases, right? Health, auto, home, doesn't matter. Everything went up. So auto went up specifically a 26% jump from 2023 on average. So I'm telling you this so that you don't feel like you were the only company that went up. You need to have confidence in that. Because if you get in your own mindset that you're not a value or you're not competitive enough, like how are you going to convey that? People want to do business with people who sound confident in their product, which means confidence in their pricing. The pocket picture is to remind you not to sell out of your own pocket. You might look at a quote that says $4,000 every 6 months and think, oh my Lord, I can't even say this quote. There's no way they can afford this. They rent. You don't know anything about that person. Don't make assumptions. They might be paying $5,000 at their competitor. Do not make assumptions. Do not sell out of your own pocket on what you could or couldn't afford or what's important to you or not important to you. Because I can tell you that me and my husband are completely opposites on what's important to us. I buy every bell and whistle, accident forgiveness, claim forgiveness, you name it, it's on my policy. $5 million umbrella, all the things, jewelry, everything on the policy. If he could have it his way, we would self-insure. We wouldn't have one insurance policy, which is why I take care of the insurance. Don't put your wants and needs and your personality onto someone else. That is part of the rapport building, learning what's important to them, things like that. But affordability, you just don't know because There's a book called Millionaire Next Door, and for the longest time running, a Ford F-150 was the number one millionaire car. So you can't look at somebody's vehicles and be like, oh, like they must not have very much money. Like, no, that's not true at all. Like, absolutely not true at all. So a little bit of positive encouragement here, guys, is that in quarter two of 2024, nearly half of US auto insurance customers considered switching plans. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is that in quarter three, they ended up doing some of that shopping and ended up at 13.8% both September and October. So if people shopped in September and October, that means they may have actually taken action and moved in October, November, December, right? What are we in fourth quarter, right? So a year ago. So X dates. Like, but the point is there are probably a lot of people who thought about switching and I was like, I don't have time. We got to get to those people. We got to get to those people. And so they may fill out or connect with Quote Wizard. And then those are the people that thought about it. Now they're taking action. And you need to be the first person to call within 5 minutes. And then lastly, I want to leave you with this saying. These are my two favorite sayings when it comes to this topic. The fortune is in the follow up, and persistence pays. So when you are feeling down or discouraged, just remember that persistence pays, or that fortune is waiting for you at the end of the follow up. So thank you so much for your time today. All right, so let's see if we can get some questions answered. All right, do we have any questions?
Yes. Okay. Our
Okay,
first one is really good. It's long though, so give me a second. Okay.
okay, yeah, you're good.
A lot of training companies advocate for the double dial upon first time call, sometimes every call. This is where you dial once and then it rings to voicemail or goes straight to voicemail. You immediately dial again. Okay, these same trainers also advocate calling 2 to 3 times per day for the first 10 to 15 business days. What are your thoughts on this approach?
Yes. So this is where I feel like community knowledge matters and reading someone. So like I'll use myself as an example, 46 years old, working woman, a little cranky sometimes, a little cranky, just gonna be honest. Like work gets stressful. So it's not the time to try to prospect me because I'm blood pressure might be up here. My own child double tapped me one day when he was on focus mode because I couldn't be interrupted. And I was like, don't you ever double tap me, ever. So if you want to know how to get me on your do not call list, don't double tap me. So like I kind of use like what I know about certain segments of people, like, but my kids, their insurance age level, 29, 22, 19, right? They could be pros. They could care less if you double tap them. They'd be like, yo, bruh, boy, whatever they say to answer the phone. You know what I mean? Might not be the most professional answer you ever get, but that is not going to bother them. So I think you really need to learn how to understand consumer behavior and what will get you spam marked, because that's super important, because that's a mess if you get marked as spam. You know, is it really worth double tapping a couple of people for them to possibly answer and then get, you have to constantly do spam remediation? Probably not, right? And then the follow up aggressively in a day, 10 to 15 is excessive to me. You know what I mean? Maybe, I mean, even four to me feels like a stretch. Again, though, I feel like that could be, you could be calling from different phone numbers, though. If you have different lead lines, that maybe would change up the aggressiveness that the consumer feels. But we don't want these people to feel like we're pressure cookers. We want them to feel like we have value. We're there to help them, right? And I think if you call 10 times in a day, you're basically saying, I am a pressure cooker. And a lot of people are going to avoid you because they don't want to be sold something they don't want or need. So that's just my very honest answer about that.
No, I think that's great. And I think you have a really good point about people being different. I'm sure everyone here, you're the expert in your area. So
Right.
people
Ohio
kind
is very conservative. I even say sometimes Ohio is very weird. We have some weird quirks. You know what I mean? So you can't take what I say and then replicate it in your area, because your people must be maybe much more chill and relaxed and would be totally okay with that. So you really need to understand who your prospects are.
of, yeah. Our next one is the screen. They would love that popped up again where you show the increase in auto premiums. I think I'm like, take a screenshot.
Okay, let me see. Let's get that back up. And then you can just tell me when to go. Well, this will remove. Tell me when to stop. Is it this one? That talks about the auto increasing.
Premium. I think that must be it, right?
Okay, so we'll leave that up, and then if they
Okay.
check in. and say something different, we'll go through the rest of the flight. We'll find it. So,
Okay, this next one. Okay. Ooh, okay. Okay, sorry. We have a couple in. Thank you guys for putting them in. Okay, this one is about invalid phone numbers. How
okay.
do you change up the plan of action for that?
So I love Google. I'm very resourceful. If I see something and I'm like, oh, well, they just typoed. I mean, I have dyslexia, so it's not unusual for me to flip a number, right? So quick Google, whatever. I mean, I wouldn't even hesitate to slide into somebody's DMs if I thought it was a legitimate lead, it wasn't fake, and that just can't reach that person some way, somehow. So I think being resourceful and not just giving up because it's an invalid phone number, trying to mail something to them or use an email that's on file or whatever. But you can find out a lot about somebody with a quick Google search and try to make that lead valid, right? But obviously if that's one of the return reasons and whatever lead you're buying, you could do that. But I don't just give up because the phone number doesn't work, because to me I'm like, ooh, now I stand a better chance because everybody else is going to give up because the phone number is invalid. And I just figured out that they fat fingered a number and now I can reach them and no one else can. So that's kind of my approach to those.
Okay, I love that. Um, okay, this one is long too. So, for existing PNC customers, do you try and offer financial services after you secure the PNC and then try to follow up with loan protection, disability, etc.? Or do you try and bundle up front?
Definitely during the conversation, because you may not get their personal lines, but you could still get the financial, right? There are so many moments within a quote that you can have these conversations that make sense, like on a home quote, when they talk about their mortgage protection, right? When they talk about their employer 401ks, when they talk about if you have death indemnity on an auto policy or motorcycle, and you're like, look, it comes with 10,000, which is great. But is that really enough? What do you have? Let's talk about it, right? So, and honestly, one line you could say is, thank you for giving us the opportunity to quote your home and auto. Let's say you don't get it. But one thing you mentioned is that you have this policy with whatever company. People don't realize that you can actually mortality rates change. And then also, I heard you say you stopped smoking 5 years ago. We can shop your life insurance. You may not realize that. So, like, don't give up, right? Like, again, in a report building, we're listening. Somebody's like, "Oh, I took Ozempic. I'm down 150 pounds. Hey," and they're so happy. That, first of all, that's amazing. Good for them. But secondly, if they have life insurance and they got life insurance when they were morbidly obese, let's have that conversation. Like, girl, I can save you money with all that weight loss because I know that drug cannot be cheap. So, like, again, the human element of it, we have to start thinking differently. We can't be so like scripted and structured. We have to go off script sometimes.
And then this person had a follow-up question where
Sure.
it's very specific to them. So
Okay.
it's about so they brought on to sell financial services, focusing on
Mhm.
life, but they're struggling with life. So they're thinking about PNC. I was like,
Mhm.
Chris, sounds like you need to get some personalized coaching. That to me.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I do believe that a lot of financial people, which by the way, that's what I started in insurance industry, was I was an internal wholesaler. So securities and life are my actual background. So I do think it makes it easier to have personalized relationships with people. But that could be a referral from the personal lines team members over to a financial person, right? But if you can do both, eliminating the handoff and the transfer, I think is great. But I also think that if you're going to do life, you need to also do financial services, because again, people are about efficiencies and they want to do it, and you just have so much pressure with like online companies doing needs analysis. They can just get on an app and they can do their own stuff. Like, we have to be like, no, no, let me take care of your insurance portfolio, let me take care of your financial services, which includes life and health. I do think you could be a life only producer and be great. That's what my husband did for years. He's still does it, but now we're focused on the financial services side. But you can make a great living, but you have to call and call and call. It is a lot of effort. So if you can make it easier by bringing in other products that have easier entryways into it, I think that that could be very valuable to some life people.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh, we've got some more, which I love. Okay. This we have one phone number for our office, no
Okay.
extension.
Okay.
Should we check with each wireless carrier to see if our number has been blocked?
1,000% every week. every week you should check it. To have a list of all the carriers, somebody who has that, like Bobby has Verizon, Shelly has T-Mobile, could be internal people, could be your mom, could be Fred, right? Just my weekly call just to make sure I'm not on your spam. Like, absolutely. It's huge, critical process.
All right, this one is about recommendations about market segmentation, region, like with what they believe. Uh, and I this is about leads, and I guess I'm very curious to see what Allison you think, but I would say you can check with your manager, like they can kind of evaluate and see where the leads are coming through. I think that's what you're asking. So I would go and call your vendor and say, hey, can you show me the stats? How many leads are you getting in each? But Allison, I am curious, what is your recommendation?
What was the question?
So they're asking about best ways to seeing like market segmentation, region with internet leads. And I would,
So you can do a couple of things if you have a third party system that watches ROI for you. Like I use this with my mentoring and coaching clients. Like we get into third party systems and look like, okay, here's all your quote wizard leads, and then here's the zip codes those were successful in. This is how many you bought. Like you could use Google. I mean, if you're good at creating an Excel spreadsheet or a Google, you could do that. And then sometimes if you're new to the game or don't have enough data, you could ask your corporate if they can give you some zip code stuff. Now that might not be as granular as the lead company, but that gives you zip codes and high close rates. And if a zip code has got 70% penetration for the company you do, you might want to avoid that zip code because it's already got tons of people, right? So then that'll give you the leads to give to Quote Wizard. So you're very specific that you're just, I call it spray and pray. You're not just like, give me the whole state of Ohio. Like, no, no, let's not do that. Let's be very intentional in what we're trying to do, and that could be because even home ownership counts, right? Like if I'm focused on home and auto households and not auto renters, why am I going to focus on a zip code or region that is heavy renters? I want to focus on somebody that's heavy homeowners. So even that data matters, and you probably get that on the internet, like how many homeowners versus renters are in a city or whatever. So that would be my answer to that.
no, that's great. I love that. Yeah, I 100%. It's about tracking. It's not
Yep.
fun, right? But you got to
No.
track that data. I'm so sorry.
Yep, absolutely. But if you want to shoot me any other questions over, and I will gladly get them answered since this is your client database. But it has been an absolute pleasure spending the afternoon with you guys, and let us know if you need anything, and we would love to see you over at CWC. So,
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. I will share all this information, so don't worry. I know I learned a lot. I hope you guys all did too. I'm pretty confident everybody walked away learning something.
yay! That's exactly the point of doing these, right? Okay, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, see ya.